Well, let's go Yankees first, and then we'll get to the embarrassment of the Mets and what happened with the lineup card and Mickey Callaway and the boys. But Kevin Kernan joins us here from the New York Post. We love his work and been reading his material for many, many years. Kevin, Roger Weiland, Chris Honorado, ESPN Radio in Albany. Good morning.
Good morning, Roger. Chris.
Morning, Kevin. Appreciate Kevin. They just find a way now almost every night, a new way. And last night, the Yankees get it from Brett Gardner, who came into the game batting 198 and was 7 for 56. And last night it was his turn to come up with the biggest hit of the game.
Yeah, Raj. He hadn't had a multi-hit game since April 16th. And, I spent a lot of time with him before the game because I take my job differently than most columnists. I'm not just into numbers. I try to talk to the guys, whether in good shape or bad shape. And we had a great conversation beforehand, and one of the points he made to me was, with this team, there's no pressure because basically other guys pick you up, and that's his approach. He got the big walk the night before and the 3-2 win. So he went in there in a great frame of mind. He worked on some things, picked up on some things. But this is a great the Yankees are an amazing team on a lot of levels because of how they got the youth, the experience, and they also have that. They never, it's a cliche, but they never think they're really out of a game. And this was just another example. And it didn't come against a slouch either. It came against Kimbrel. So I think that shows where they're at right now as a team.
I mean, Kevin, when Ramirez hit the home run to put the Red Sox in front, I thought, all right, well, this might be a night where they're going to lose and the 7-game winning streak will end. But to your point, here they go in the 8th inning. And Neil Walker starts it off with a double off Matt Barnes, and then Gleyber Torres walks, and then in comes Kimbrel, and what does Brett Gardner do? A 3-2 pitch over the head of Mookie Betts, 2 runs are in, and the Yankees have a 1-run lead. That's the way it's rolling right now. I know they're going to cool off at some point, but right now they are the talk of baseball.
Yeah, they will cool off, but they have so much depth that they're not going to, they're not going to freeze like some teams freeze. When it completely ends, it ends. And I picked them in my preseason. You can go look at my post preseason. I picked them to be in the World Series and win the World Series. That's how strong I feel about this team. Question you have is, do they have the pitching to keep up with Houston? But that's a story for another day because they have the hitting, and I think they'll go out and get a pitcher. They just have too much talent in the minor leagues not to go out and get a top pitcher. But I think from you having me on your show, your listeners were way ahead of the curve because a few years ago, I first wrote about Aaron Judge in March of 2000. I think it was 15. So this kid's been on my radar for a long time. He's a game changer as a leader. He's the complete leader of this team. Everybody else follows suit, and this is not going to go away. This is what it takes to win. And Stanton is falling right in line too, because he had a big hit last night too. He's starting to come around. This is a guy who's never really been in first place at all in his major league career. So this is he's pumped by this too. So this is a very driven team. Aaron Boone's done a nice job of kind of coming over, going with the flow. He's a little laid back, which they like after Girardi's clenched teeth approach to managing.
Kevin Kernan with us here on Big Board Sports 104.5 The Team, ESPN Radio. Of course, you find his work in the New York Post and on Twitter at Where's Kernan. Kevin, I want to ask you about what happened in the Mets game. You've been around this game for a long time. I just said to Roger just kind of off the cuff this morning, I can't remember seeing this happen in a major league game where they bat out of order, and then obviously the opposing manager calls them out for it, and it ends in inning. Do you remember seeing this ever before?
Well, actually, I've been in the business since '77, and it happened to the Mets in '77.
Of course,
I wasn't covering them at the time. Yeah, of course. The Mets have as many batting out of orders as they do World Championships. So that tells you something about them. And also I do remember one, and I'm not great. The years meld together, but covering the Padres one year, I vaguely remember the Padres batting out of order. I will say this, Jim Riggleman's a very good baseball man, the Reds manager. I'm sure he checked it right away, was sitting on it right away, and knew what to happen. very interesting. It was the talk of being around the Yankees yesterday, and I talked to a former manager who was there in a scouting position, and basically I said, I know how this can't happen. It just can't happen. I don't care what you say. And he said, listen, every time when you manage a game, the first thing you do when you walk out into that dugout, hours before the game, you check out and you take that little lineup card that you're going to hold to the umpire, that you're going to give to the umpires. You hold it up against the big lineup card, and you double and triple check just to make sure you didn't screw anything up. And this is, I'm not blaming, this isn't just Mickey Callaway here. And you guys know I've been on this soapbox for a while. Baseball has gotten terrible in how they regulate the game, how they do fundamentals, how the game is played. And they've thrown experience out the window. These young GMs, these guys, I think they know it all. The number guys who know nothing about the game hire guys like Mickey Callaway, who I'm not saying he doesn't deserve the job, but they hire guys like Mickey Callaway and Aaron Boone, who basically have never had any managerial experience. The difference is, of course, Aaron Boone's dad has been in the game forever, his grandfather, so there's a whole different line with Boone and Callaway. But they hire guys who've never managed a game in their lives, not even in Little League for the most part, and then they get shocked, absolutely shocked when something like this happens. They create it. This is on Mets management as much as it's on Mickey Callaway.
Kevin, do you think the Mets and Callaway now backs to the wall here? I mean, they've lost 8 of 9. They lost 6 of the last 7 series after a really great start. Can they get this thing turned around?
I don't know. And I think it is a back to the wall. And this is, to me, there are defining moments throughout a season, and I think this is a defining moment. This is either where you circle the wagons as a team and say, that's why I thought I was absolutely shocked that they lost the game. Because when that happens in the first inning, you have time to recover as a team. And you know what you say in that dugout? Hey, let's pick up our manager. And they didn't pick up their manager. They should have rolled to about an 8-1 lead against the terrible Reds team, but they didn't. So I don't know if they're capable of getting this together. But this is their low point. If they don't get it together now, then they're done, and it'll be a very rough ride for the Mets and Callaway for many years.
Credit where it's due here, too, Kevin. I remember speaking with you, this is a few years ago now, on Roger's other radio show, previous station, and you had already kind of lost hope in Matt Harvey, not because of his ability, but because of his mentality and attitude, and now he's gone from the Mets. Are you surprised in any way that it ended as ugly as it did?
No, not one bit, Chris. And excuse me, I have a little bit of a cold running around the country. But Matt Harvey, and I wrote the column 2 weeks ago in St. Louis, when he gets demoted to the bullpen, he comes out to stretch. He acts like he doesn't even want to be there. He doesn't even really stretch. He gets on one knee. And I wrote the next column the next day saying he's got to get into this mentally. And, of course, then you have guys like Keith Law, who really just makes lists for what he does. And, then he starts saying, there I am attacking Matt Harvey's ego. I'm not attacking anybody's ego. I'm just explaining what's going on here. And this is Matt Harvey has no one. Yes, he's had some terrible injuries. I agree 100%. But at this point, for what he should be, and I'm not saying he should be Matt Harvey the Dark Knight, but he still has some ability, and he should have accepted that totally differently. He should have listened to Callaway and Island. And now he gets a fresh start, so good for him. But this is on his head as much as it's on.
Kev, I want to ask you one more thing, too, historical perspective here with Ichiro taking that front office role with the Mariners, and then yesterday would have been, I believe, the 58th birthday for Tony Gwynn. How do you compare the two? For me, in my lifetime, I always had great respect for Tony Gwynn as a hitter, and I know he doesn't get the love that a left-handed batter like David Ortiz would get, because Gwynn's not going to hit 40-plus home runs. But they both seem to me to be very similar guys who maybe are going to end up being underappreciated in time. Ichiro and Gwynn, that being.
Yeah, it's interesting. And both those guys, of course, I covered Tony Gwynn, loved him as a player and as a person. He was there for you all the time and for his teammates, and loved to talk hitting. And, of course, he's in your backyard, his legacy with the Hall of Fame. And Ichiro's a huge Hall of Fame guy, goes up there all the time on his own. He'll be in the Hall of Fame. Ichiro's legacy will be tremendous, I think, in a lot of ways, because maybe here he's a little underappreciated, but, he has the whole country, Japan and everything else. And he's a game changer. And I would love to see those two guys talk hitting because they do have similar approaches, and that's a great point. And, I can't get enough when I talk to Ichiro. And actually, I talk to Ichiro in English because I don't speak Japanese. And, he's really a fun guy to be around. Loves the game. Wanted to play until he was 50, so it's interesting that he finally stepped down. But reality comes around in this game. But he's a joy, and I think he'll be. When he goes into the Hall of Fame, it'll be a special time. And yesterday was, I think, Tony Gwynn's birthday. So I miss the big guy.
Kevin Kernan, keep up the great work. We enjoy all of it in the New York Post, and we'll talk to you down the road as we continue to move forward with this baseball season.
Okay, fellas, take care.
Thanks,
Thank
Kevin.
you, Kevin.